Welcome to the podcast with your favorite cash flow guys, Mike and Blaine. Giving you the best advice while having a beer. When you're running a business, there are problems every day. Let Mike and Blaine help you out and guide your way. Cheers to the good times with Mike and Blaine for business, beer, and BS.
There we go. All right, so episode 106 of Mike and Blaine. I am Mike Mylan. That is my partner, Blaine Birch. You know what would make this better? A beer.
Some beer.
Some beer. All right, so let's reset with our beer. What are you drinking today?
Well, so now I couldn't really get anything with the theme today. You're talking about hyper-local strategies for small business. But what I did do is I found a great beer from Snake Lake, which is Alberta. So it's not hyper-local to me, but it's a small town south of us. They got this really cool logo that's actually the shape of Alberta with the wheat. And it's called Ice Cutter Vanilla Latte Stout. It is delicious. These guys make outstanding beer, and it more, I guess, in honor of promoting a small kind of hyper local business. I wanted to promote Snake Lake because they're awesome.
Yeah, right on.
Oh, before I go, I have a beer sponsor. I gotta remember to plug my beer sponsor. So I got two, so I'm bouncing back and forth. This week, Jonathan Engel from Engel Investments. What they do is they help you if you're raising funds or selling your business. Right now, that can be obviously a pretty big challenge. They helped us raise our last round before everything went bonkers. But now it's a bit of a challenge. So if you're looking for some help, reach out to Jonathan. Those guys know exactly what they're doing.
Right on. So I'm like you. I didn't have anything for the theme. And I'll tell you how the theme or the topic of the day came up is I'm like, we're always talking globally, right? We're just always talking about the world around us and how to reach out and marketing and everything else. But we rarely talk about the thousands upon thousands of businesses that are just hyper local. I don't care if it's the guy mowing yards in your neighborhood or, the farmer's market down the street. There's all these things where they have to rely on hyper local. And that's the word I'm using for it, is specific to, it might not even be the entire city. It might be just part of a city. It might be a neighborhood. It might be a street, a block. So I want to talk about, how's it different for the smallest of small businesses that can still be successful, can still thrive, can still support a family or somebody's dreams. Let's talk about that today. So
let's do it.
My beer is from the oldest craft brewery in Texas, and it's St. Arnold. It's out of Houston. It's out of Houston. And here's how it was chosen. Courtney's daughter, while we were going down the craft beer section, she goes, "Hey, can I pick the podcast beer this week?" I'm like going, "Well, yeah, heck yeah. I mean, who am I? I'm not great at picking beer. You might as well pick beer too." So she picked for me based on the colorful of it and the end of summer. Nice. St. Arnold's Summertime Pills. I don't think this is a full-time beer though. I mean, maybe it is. It says award-winning, but I don't see it that often. Maybe they only release it in the summertime. So
it's got a fun label. Yeah, right? And so it maybe not a sponsor, but you have a consultant, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, a beer consultant, a personal shopper.
I had a 16-year-old beer consultant.
Well, she's got a good pick. That looks like a cool cat, and she picked a good brewery. So
that's how I used to pick wine. I'm like, who's got the coolest label? Because I had no idea what I was looking at. I'm like, if you got a cool label,
used to. That's what I do now.
Oh, well,
I don't know my wine very well.
I actually have somebody that knows wine, so I let her do that now.
That's good. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know much about wine. I'm pretty picky about my beer, but I still get suckered in by a cool label, even on beer, but just not quite as bad as the wine. So, all right. You've had some hyper local business.
I have, and that just came to me. I'm like going because I think I've participated on both sides of the coin, right? Like today, you and I have global businesses. I'd like to say that at least for me. I don't know about you. Mine is limited though to English speaking, participants, right? If you don't speak English, chances are you probably shouldn't use my stuff, right?
Yeah, and we are, but only to a degree because numbers are numbers. So we have users. The last time I checked, I haven't checked it in a long time. 70 some countries, 73, 74 countries that have been that they use dry run.
Yep.
And of course, a lot of those aren't English speaking countries, but I think they I'm assuming they must be conversant in English enough to use the tool. But once you're in, we have currency conversion. We have, the way the currency is formatted, all of that. You can do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So once you're in, you kind of get it. I think it's you don't have to be completely conversant with there's so much content that would be a challenge.
Well, I mean, the app that I'm building is multi-currency, right? Because like you said, numbers are numbers. But, if you're going to watch a video or you're going to read any of my stuff, I don't have any of it translated, right?
Yeah.
I did have a person in Germany reach out to me for permission to translate one of my charts, one of my images. And I'm like going, heck yeah, why not? Sounds cool to me.
Tell them to send it back and we'll make a T-shirt.
Yeah, send me a copy. That's why I told her, say, hey, when you get it done, send it back so I can, it'd be cool to see, what it came out as. So that would be kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, did I start off hyper local? Yeah, but it was bigger than what I'm thinking today. So my first company was janitorial, right? So I could go kind of in an area if I could drive it. And we had like Columbia, Missouri and Jefferson City, Missouri. So, 45 minutes apart or 30 minutes apart. But the restaurants, all right. So when you think about the restaurants, those are hyper local, right? I'm not drawing in people from, Indianapolis to come into the restaurant unless they just happen to be there and they've heard about it from somebody else, right? So that's what I'm talking about is like, what is it? Because there's so many data points that can happen and that you have to attract them to that area. One, get them to participate in your service. But there's also little things that I don't worry about now that I had to worry about then. Like, a building permit was coming up or construction was on a road or, in front of one of my buildings. The reason I bought the building is they upgraded the gas and sewer lines on the whole street. Well, and then a bunch of revitalization came in behind it. So property value shot up and I sold the building. But those are the little things that I don't have to pay attention to now at all in the market.
Yeah. This is an area like I'm going to be more interested in what you have to say today because I've never had a business that I had to draw them to a location, draw people to a location. Now my creative agency that I had for about a decade started, I would say, local, but we still, a few years later, we still relied on our Edmonton market, on the city market, but we expanded and we were doing work across the province and a little bit across the country. But most of it was close, a little more in the province and a little bit across the country. But we had to figure out because at that point, this is pre-Zoom days. We went and met with our customers in person. These were big, complicated projects. So we would be meeting with them and repeatedly. So local worked or maybe a few other places in the province here. So I can appreciate that side of how do you generate business when at that point I had to meet with people, which means it was local. How do you generate that? So I got, I guess, some thoughts on that, but I'm more interested in how you were drawing people to your restaurant, bars, that sort of thing.
All right, so the first one was it's a neighborhood place, right? So, and I was fortunate enough when I bought it, it had already been there for 20 years, right? So it isn't like nobody knew it existed, right? Yeah. They already had some people coming in. They already had kind of some regulars that came in and out. But it was a neighborhood place. It wasn't like people were driving across St. Louis to come there. It was like people would just come like 4 blocks over from their house, right? So the thing is that you had to make it inviting for the neighborhood, but then it has its own challenges too, is, as the neighborhood grows up, do they still do the same activities, right? Or do you got to encourage new people to come in? So there was always this blend of different customers. And we saw in the 6 years I was there, I would see I think this is how it ended up being, was a shift in clientele where the older crowds would come in earlier, and then by 8 o'clock, it would be like a shift change, right? The younger crowds would come in. But
Yeah.
we used, I participated a lot in what I call the cluster theory. Have you ever heard of that? The cluster theory of business? Yeah, right.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
that's why there's if you see a McDonald's, there's usually another fast food restaurant around the way. If you see a Home Depot, there's probably a Lowe's, within a couple of miles. Car dealerships all together. That's kind of the cluster theory. And so it was the same thing here. You do that because your marketing dollars go farther, because you're actually capitalizing on other people's marketing dollars as well. And being in a strip mall is actually kind of a cool thing. This first one was in a strip mall. And it's helpful because you got the dry cleaner. We had a little convenience store down at the end. You've got another little restaurant just 2 doors down. Some other, I forget what the other business was, but all of a sudden you got 4 or 5 businesses that are trying to bring people in. Or you're just capitalizing off one. Well, I dropped off at the dry cleaner. I'll go in. Oh, I know what it was. It was a martial arts studio. So I would get dads that would drop the kids off. At the martial arts studio, and then come in for a beer while they was waiting for the hour, right? So there was the opportunity to capture somebody else's dollar. So you still have to market, but you market in such a different way, in a hyper local business.
I was asking, we were out for dinner with a restaurant owner in Edmonton a couple weeks ago, and he's got a couple different restaurants in town, opening a third. And I asked him because I was curious, because we go there all the time, like we're there quite often, and I asked him what percentage of his clientele were repeat customers, because I was just really curious how that worked. He seems to have a lot of repeat customers, and his response was, he goes, well, it's kind of hard to put a finger on it, because we have repeat customers that are here like 4 or 5 times a week. We have repeat customers that are here a couple times a week, once a month, a couple times a year. And he goes, they are repeat customers. I don't know. And I don't know where it becomes regulars to repeat customers, but they sort of are. And he said it was interesting because it just was a lot more complicated than I thought. But I can tell that his restaurant is just really heavy on regulars. And I don't know if that's the usual, because we're there all the time and we see the same people there all the time, right?
Well, one of the biggest differences I can tell you from that local business to what we're doing now is, well, I guess it's not true for me. It's more true for you. When you own the business and you're interacting with the customer, you become part of the play, right? You become part of the reason they come there. That's why you do the Chamber of Commerce and you do the local networking events and the charity charity festivals and those type of things, because you want to be seen in the community as somebody, oh yeah, let's go support Mike. Let's go support what he's doing because he came out to our stuff. So the whole mentality is that you are an extension of your business, and you may be a dry run as Blaine. Not so much. I mean, people really don't care who the CEO of Dry Run is. Your day-to-day customer.
I do talk a lot with our customers. I still do a lot of networking. We have customers coming in that were people that are local-ish or referrals from people that we know. We actually do still quite a bit of that. And I really like that, because this is where you get to have those really good conversations. Because honestly, some of our customers come in from somewhere in the world. They sign up. We never hear from them. We'd like to talk with them, but they're just like, no, I don't want to talk with you. And then they buy. And we never get that connection. And so I still do some of that networking and local and referral stuff all the time with Dry Run. And I think it's really valuable to get that FaceTime with your customers, but also we do this kind of stuff. Like you and I are doing this podcast. I've got another podcast. We do lots of videos. We show up at events and sit on little panels and all kinds of stuff. I know you do the same thing, because there still is that element. I don't feel like we're kind of like the faceless Amazon sort of thing. Like there still is a face to this business, and I think it's really, really important.
No, I can go with that. By the way, I just got a text from neighbor Pat, which we hadn't heard from him in a couple, right? But neighbor Pat blamed it on producer Chad, but it was not producer Chad, and he did not get promoted. He's still an intern. So you keep Chad in his chair where he needs to be, in that intern chair.
I mean, he wrote an entire rap about us and Profit First in about like 4 seconds. So I'm still kind of impressed with that. Maybe it wasn't the best rap, but you delivered it with a lot of gusto. When I don't know if producer Chad has a lot of style. Right?
All right, so yeah, the rap. If you haven't seen it, it's out there right now on the internet. I'm not going to blame Chad for that. I think Chad did a nice job writing it. I think it was my first run through, right? Because we didn't have, it was cold. It was, here's the words, go. And so I didn't have a beat in my head. I'm just trying to figure it out. I hadn't even said the words before. I think maybe 3 or 4 times in, I would have had a rhythm. I think maybe the 4th time in, I would have had a rhythm.
Yeah, no, you were reading it live as it came out, which is impressive because you wrapped that sucker out, and I thought it was pretty damn good. I couldn't pull that off. So, all
right, so but here's the big thing about this hyper-local. What I was talking about is it is you are an extension, is what I was talking about, and you're part of the reason why people come in, right? It's you, right? So everything you do is about, how do I get people to come to my spot? And you get that way through referrals. Oh no, you got to go to Mike's spot. It's just, I don't care if you're doing auto repair, right? Auto repair companies. If I'm in St. Charles, Missouri, I have no reason to advertise in Kansas City or in Omaha, Nebraska, right? Nobody's going to come get their car repaired in St. Charles. So, but what do we all say to each other? Oh no, we like them, trust them, great prices. Go down to that auto dealer. He's down on 10th Street. Yeah, because that's how business is done at the whole hyper local level. Now the thing is that digital has come in. You still have to do SEO, right? You still have to, and you can win a lot easier at the local level, which means, hey, instead of trying to compete for your keywords, what you're trying to do, bar, restaurant, car repair, dry cleaning. Now I'm just competing with the people in this neighborhood. I can just focus on, if you search in this neighborhood, I'm the first person that comes up. I'm not competing with Walmart. I'm not competing with, anybody else in the world. I mean, what do you think of that? Have you had an experience there?
Not in the, like, something that pops into my mind. It's not my business, but it is so hyper local, and it's amazing how it worked. Is we had 13 trees. We got a bug in the city here that started killing off trees, and we had a big long line of these 30-foot tall aspens that are tall and skinny, and they just died. They just started dying. And we had a tree guy come next door, and we hadn't got ours out yet, and he was taking out the trees next door. So I walked over. I think my wife actually went and talked with the guy, got a really good deal for us. We got these trees taken out because it was just like, he was right there, like just right there. Yeah. I've also had my roof inspected, and I got some big rocks in front of the yard and stuff the same way. It just happened to be local. Fast forward to this year, and they were another neighbor taking, and it turned out the same guys taking a tree out. And I said, hey, can you come over and trim this big tree we have in the backyard that I'm looking at right now? And so, comes over, trims it. Interesting how he trimmed it. It was really neat technique. So I learned how they trim tall branches like that without smashing everything. But what I found interesting is all their gear, all their stuff, their trucks, everything is just logoed up, the name, the phone number, the everything else. And we were out for a walk the other day. This is probably a month and a half later, and they're cutting trees down. And I kid you not, they're 3 blocks away. I don't think they've left this neighborhood in probably 5 years, because as soon as you see them and I got a problem with my tree, you go and ask them. Mm-hmm. And they probably barely have to leave this neighborhood, and they can go all summer. And that's to me is the same as when people are putting like those signs up on the lawn when they're like working in the house. They've got the names and their phone number on their truck. So you go by and go, oh, there's a plumber at the neighbor. Shit, I got to get some plumbing done. Yeah. That I think is so massively effective. And I think I just want to point out the reason I think it's effective is because it's not that you're seeing a car drive by with a phone number. It's because you're basically, your neighbor is endorsing them. They're sitting on their driveway and you're getting that credibility score by, well, if the neighbor hired them, then they must be good.
That's right. Yeah, they built trust and credibility right there. So, hey, speaking of arborists, I talked to one. We had one here, right?
Yeah.
There was two things that he did that I'm like going, oh my God, that's the smartest thing for cash flow that you could do. So, in the springtime, it gets pretty busy. So when you call him in, he'll go, hey, I can do it now I just had 2 trees in the back. I can do it now for $535. But if you wait till June, I'll do it for $425. Like, oh, I'll wait. And what he's done is actually pushed to sale his revenue and probably production capability out another month, right? Then he says, if you got oak trees, the best time to do those are in November or something like that. So then he's got this specific type of tree that he only does in the fall. So he's like setting up so he has work and revenue all year long, and his slow periods become actually gone, smooth it out. He smooths his revenue out all year long. And I'm like going, God damn, that's really good. That's just perfect, use of cash flow.
It's funny because we were just looking at that. We did a webinar the other day and I was talking about forecasting the peaks and valleys. That's literally exactly what he's doing. Is in May, he's super busy and he's like, I'm going to be over capacity. I can't do any more work, but if I can convince somebody to bump it back, then I can actually fill it. And then November, I can fill these dips and start smoothing the cash flow, smoothing the capacity out, smoothing the revenue out. But I also am curious if he's also doing that of, I'll be in the neighborhood. He's looking at his calendar going, I'm going to be in that neighborhood on such and such a day, which increases efficiency, which pumps up the profit margin. Even though he's charging less, I bet he has a bigger profit margin because just like the tree guy here, he's doing that whole neighborhood in a certain time. And so you can see like the efficiencies of hyper local like that, like being in the neighborhood, but also planning for that. And then planning for the slow periods and reducing his high periods. Because I know that's one thing that the tree guy said. He barely snuck us in to take a couple branches off because he was so busy. But there's other times of the year he's going to be swamped. So his revenue is actually just capped at the capacity. And that's what almost all service businesses are, capped at the capacity. Even my creative agency, capped at my capacity. And if you can move those things around, you can generate, we know 21% more revenue over a year, and it's almost all profit.
Yeah, that's right. So the other thing I like, all right, so hyper local, you're talking about just seeing something and getting business just because you happen to be seen the right way. I don't care if it's a logo, a number, whatever. You ever been to a bar district? Like just, there's a bunch of bars. Just on the
well, not yet today.
But
yeah, hey, absolutely.
Every single one of those places has to compete for every set of foot traffic that goes by, right? And they have to do it through sound. They have to do it through light, the energy, the things on the wall, the marketing. I like the ones that use the sandwich boards out front that says, "Hey, your wife called, gave you permission to stop in." Stuff like a little bit of humor. Okay, that's funny. I'll go in. Plus, I got permission.
Yeah, exactly. There, we see that like there's basically 2 brewery districts in Edmonton now, and it used to be breweries kind of scattered around, and they start to cluster more and more and more, and so we'll bike to one kind of district or bike to the other one on the weekends, and go to 2-3 places, but there's a dozen, 15, 20 places, so you can kind of switch them up, right? Mm-hmm. But we were over there one night. It was a Friday night, and I saw that they had barbecue. There's kind of 2 of the breweries were kind of sharing this barbecue, and they had a giant grill up front there. And so we went down there and we tried some of the barbecue, but it was amazing. And it's a little bit kind of felt like a little like pre-COVID to me. It felt like a street party. Like both breweries were absolutely full. It was loud. There's music. There's people wandering around. They got the barbecue going. And then we went down to the next one down, a few blocks over, and they had an ice cream truck. And then a few blocks over, they had another food truck, and everyone had their food trucks and everything. And it's just this group, because we would see them, we go to another place, and suddenly some of the people from the other breweries will start popping in, and they were just going from one to the other and back and forth. And I actually think that probably every brewery in the district got 20% of the people that were in the neighborhood that night, because they were switching from one to the other. And it was really, really cool to see how they clustered together, and actually how they support each other. They brand together.
Exactly.
The one area they call like Happy Beer Street, they do stuff together for promotion. Really a terrific way to do it.
It creates an event that the community comes to, right? Just because everybody's doing it together. Here's the fear of small business. Is some big companies are going to come in and take all your business away. My very first client was a hardware store, right? Local hardware store. And he saw, and this is hyper local intelligence. He saw a building permit get filed with the city for a Walmart.
Oh man.
Right? Your local hardware store, Walmart's coming to town, right? Think about that. He goes, oh my God. And he calls me. He says, hey, what, you got any advice? How do I compete with Walmart? I said, whoa, wait a second. First of all, you're not competing with Walmart. You're competing with that Walmart. Right? So don't think that you're competing with every Walmart in the world. You're competing with that one. And I said, how do you compete with Walmart? What did they not have that you have? Well, I know everybody in town. We're going to start there. Hey, Joe, good to see you again. You have to make it part of your culture that everybody gets greeted, that you know everybody, that you're part of the community too, that this is, somewhere that they go. You can keep prices higher. People will pay a higher price when they think you get better service. You think they're going to go into Walmart and go, hey, Joe, hey, I got these new things in that you got, that you like to use on the house or whatever it is. They're not going to do that. So you need to be able to carry those items that they can't get at Walmart.
Yep.
You could charge a little bit higher prices because they can't get it at Walmart. And while they're there, they'll get the regular stuff because they, their name.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I mean, you become their friend that owns a hardware store. Walmart can never be that.
Well, and the expertise too. Like the liquor store I go to in Edmonton most often is called Keg and Cork. So if you're in Edmonton, it's I think one of the absolute best places in town for craft beer. And but the way they compete, because there are some big box, there's the superstore, giant cheapo liquor places and all that. The way they compete is on the variety that they have blows the hell out of everybody else. And their expertise. And so we were just buying my father-in-law a bottle of scotch for his birthday. He just turned 80. So we went in, and I was looking, so I had to do some research online, but I was looking for a bottle of scotch that came from the region that his grandpa was from in Scotland. And I actually found a bottle of scotch that was from the distillery was in the region, and it was a special edition where all of the barley was grown on one of the farms right in the area owned by the distillery. Like the whole thing, it was such a cool story, right? It was such a great story. So I walked into the store and I asked, I said, I'm looking for this bottle. It was the very last one they had. And I'm like, oh, man, thank God they had it, because it's almost like it'd be almost impossible to find. But they have this giant wall of scotch, and I bet you, I don't know if there'd be a single bottle that was maybe at the big box store. It was all very carefully curated. And then I talked to the guy in the store for half an hour because he was so knowledgeable about scotch. He was telling me about everything, about tasting profiles and this, that, and the other. And then he said, yeah, but you got to come in on Sunday because the real scotch guy's here. I'm like, what? Like, really? Like, but there's this expertise, and then unique products that aren't at the big box store. And then and they're probably more of a premium product. And it seems like that is sort of the special trifecta that makes a small business like that be able to really compete against the big ones.
And speaking of competing against the big ones and having expertise and a unique premium product, you should check out Cashflow Mike and his premium product Pathfinder.
This is sweet. You should give me the signal and I'll do the segue, but that was great. That was slick. That was good.
I thought that was good, right? Because
That was good.
so yeah, so Pathfinder is the certification program. We actually have it accredited now, audited by a third party company. Certification program that transforms you, the accountant, the bookkeeper, into financial advisor, and teaches you how to find hidden cash for your clients in less than 15 minutes. That is what I offer. You can buy cash flow consulting anywhere else in the world, but you cannot get it from me. And I tell you, I have financial strategies that are easy to use and even easier to explain. So I appreciate it. Check out Cashflow Mike at cashflowmike.com.
Yeah, and I got to add on to that. We did a webinar last week, Mike and I, and mostly Mike, and it was that we just dipped a toe into the hidden cash area, and it was fascinating and really interesting to get that deep dive on where businesses are losing money. And then I dove into a little bit on the future, where you can find that, operationally, where you can find some of that. But what I think, if you're a CPA out there, you can help your clients find cash, and that is worth so much more than I filed your taxes, right? Like,
Absolutely.
Help them grow their business, help them thrive, and they will love you and they will never leave you, and they'll pay you handsomely for it as well.
You know what's funny is that I tell bankers, because I train bankers and accountants, right? So I tell them all the time, I say, what business do you think you're really in? When you're working with these small businesses, I'll say these hyper local businesses, when you're working with them, what business do you think you're really in? What do you think? Banker and accountant. It's the same for both to me.
What business are you really in?
I tell them that they are in the dream fulfillment business. Everything they should be doing. Yeah. So think about it.
Because I am thinking about it, and I'm thinking every time I picture CPA or banker, I think dreamer.
No, but their job is to help you, the business owner, fulfill your dreams. They are in the dream fulfillment business. They help you get the money to grow. They help you, stay compliant and find, hidden cash in your business. They help you fulfill your dreams as a business owner.
Yeah. And help you hopefully not step in front of the bus, the proverbial bus.
Right.
So,
hey, did you like how this time I even remembered that I'm even and you're odd?
Yes, and I'm glad you're remembering, because I'm gonna, by next week I'll be like, who's odd again? Yeah, I should know it's me. It's easy to remember. But
all right, so hyper local. We went through SEO, the marketing, getting people's attention, being part of the community. I like the collaboration that you brought up. What about just you got word of mouth? We talked about that. How would you look at data? What are some things that somebody in a small business should look at? Like, let's give you an example. I want to be in the landscaping business in North San Antonio. What are some data points I should be looking at? And I put you on the spot because you have no idea I was going to ask that question or what. But what would you look at?
Well, I'm data. When you say data points, I'm picturing reams of paper. My data points if it was hyper local, and I'll tell you, I would get in a car and I would spend hours driving around. Was it South San Antonio? Because I have no idea what's in South San Antonio, right?
North San.
North end of San Antonio. Okay, so I would drive around there and try and come up with some sort of way to it'd be useful to actually quantify a little bit of how big is the potential market? How a great example. If you're in the tree business, you don't want to be assigned a neighborhood, right? You want to be able to drive around. The reason that when I said these guys are in our neighborhood and they probably never leave is because we're mature enough. We're about 20 years old. And so there's huge overgrown trees everywhere because no one knew what the hell they're doing when they planted them, including this guy, right? Planted them freaking everywhere. There's trees everywhere. They grow huge. They grow into each other. They grow into the neighbor's yard. And it's right around that age, which is kind of that sort of data point where you're going, yeah, they're mature, but they're troublesome, and they're going to have to start removing some and replacing them. Go to a new area, it's like, oh, there's no trees there yet, right? Go like, so there's some of those things that I think is just on the ground sort of recon. But I don't know where would you find data that's really relevant for local, because data tends to be really large, generalized numbers, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think in this specific example, like landscaping, what came to my mind was, all right, I'm going to look for new neighborhoods, people that don't have it in yet. Remember what you said was, oh, I put it all in. I planted all this. I did all that type of stuff. These are folks that are doing that now. Right. And then
for a landscaper, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So when you're like, hey, they want the beds, the raised beds. They want a patio in the backyard. They want, they're trying to beautify their property. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe the newer neighborhoods where I'm seeing houses that don't have that yet, I'm trying to target those houses, right? Or maybe even trying to connect with the builder and going, hey, let's build it in.
Say that.
Yeah. And put it as part of the package. When I see, and anytime I do something, right? If I also provided another service, and this is where I think the guy that came and helped me with, he did the top dressing, right? I brought in a layer of soil for a new grass because it's just building up the soil. And he goes, hey, I do lawns too. I'm like, hey, we'll do the lawn. Then he never came back. How does that work? Right? Because it's one of those things where I would be telling everybody, and I would try to, if I did one thing, I would do another. Just like we had Stanley Steamer come in here. I'm like, going, man, what an opportunity for Stanley Steamer to go, hey, I did your grout, did your rug over here. What do you say for $20, $30? I hit the couch. I hit the chair. They already have all the hoses and everything in there. They're already doing that stuff. Why not try to do an add-on sale while you're in the property and go, hey, listen, while I'm here, you know anybody around, and have the homeowner call somebody. Like, go, hey, Stanley Steamer, give you $50 off because they're already here, something like that.
Yeah. I will tell you, this reminds me, like the landscaper, what the one thing we have done is every spring, it's just a mess here. After the snow's gone, the grass is all like dry, like dead thatch. There's branches, there's leaves that fell in the fall that's still floating around. So every spring, everyone here generally like has a company come in and do spring cleanup, and they just clean, rake, cut, do the whole thing. They bag it all, giant bags, and then it's gone, right? For years, I went with basically the way we were talking about. The neighbors got somebody and they're getting something done, and I'd walk over and go, hey, do my yard too. And generally it seemed to be every year I was trying to look outside the window and go, who's doing that, guys? And I'd have to wander around and find somebody. And one year, I wanted it done. I didn't see anybody. So I went online and I went to just like the free listings. Like it's kind of like Craigslist. It's kind of Kijiji in Canada. I went and listened, found a listing, hired these guys. They show up, they do the yard. I have now used them, I bet you 10 years in a row. Do you want to know how I use them and why I use them 10 years in a row? Besides, they did a good job, but I like the guys because now I've got to know them. But you know the number one reason why? They're smart enough to text me every spring early enough.
Yeah.
That's it. They send me a text and go, hey, it's Calvin. Do you want your lawn done? Yes, I do. Book the time. Done. That's how easy it is. Every year they follow up. I know they're going to follow up. Nobody else did that. Yeah. All they need is my phone number and a spreadsheet. That's it. Unbelievable how easy that is.
They don't even need that now. There's SMS programs. They can just plug it in here into an SMS once and say, send them a text once a year.
Yeah, exactly. It is so painfully easy for me. They make it so easy for me that I just use them. That's the only difference, the only differentiator, because it's not that hard to rake and cut. Like, I guess some maybe do a better job than others. I thought these guys do a good job. If they did a bad job, I wouldn't have them in. But think about that. All they did was just make it easy for me. That's it.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask you about like location, right? Because I don't have to worry about it with my business. You probably don't either. But hyperlocal has to kind of worry about it. Location, where if you're going to operate out of your home, there's still a service area that you want to participate in. But what came to my mind when we said restaurants is one thing, but what if I'm a bakery, right? And I thought, well, what's the one thing I would look for in location? Am I outside of easy access? And everybody says location, location, location. But I'm saying I also want to find something where there's not another bakery. And I came up with my mind at 2 miles. I wanted to be the only bakery in 2 miles because I think 2 miles is like going enough for people to go, I don't want to drive 2 miles. I'll just drive over here to this bakery.
Yeah. I will say that I'm going to say that there's an interesting flip side to that.
All right.
So there's a brewery downtown Edmonton called Odd Company we go to quite regularly. Right next to the brewery is a bakery. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It'll come to me. But every Saturday when we show up there, we get to the brewery, after brunch. So we're just kind of biking over, and the bakery is just opened up. Maybe been open for an hour. Every week there's a lineup outside the door, down the block, and they are open maybe 2 hours. And then they run out of stuff and they close the door. Yeah. And I look and go, they need a bigger bakery. They need more capacity. But there's also the other consideration of, shoot, should I have a bakery in the neighborhood? Because these guys sell out immediately. Mm-hmm. And on Sundays, people go by and they shake the door because it's not open on Sundays. And Mondays, shake the door because it's not open. Yeah, but there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, your competitive advantage would be you can get our stuff when you can't get theirs.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. Now, the interesting thing with a bakery, like if I looked at that bakery, the competitive advantage they have is Walmart could open up next door, Safeway down the street, no one cares. Their product is so good. People drive across the city, fight for parking, and walk a few blocks to get to this place. And they line up outside and they take whatever is left when they get in there. Now, their product is that good. They should have multiple locations. I keep looking at it going like, why do they only have one? Right.
Is it butter? It's got to be butter. Is that what makes it good? It's like butter makes everything good. So it's got to be butter.
We've tried some stuff from there. We had loaf of bread from there. It was terrific. But I've also walked in the first time I ever went in. Like I walked in and I'm like, I look and all the shelves are empty, and they're like, oh, we're just about to close up. Like, you've been open for an hour and a half. Yeah, we ran out of stuff. So what do you got left? Well, we got a couple cookies. Like, well, I'll take them. Yeah, they were really good cookies. So now we've bought cookies, we bought pastries from them. Because I'm like, wow, this stuff is great. Like, it is so good. I don't know how they do it.
What's the price like, right? Because we talked about scarcity actually creating value.
See, and that's the thing is I have zero idea because it was good. So I wouldn't even, it's probably $2-3 more a loaf of bread. Maybe it's an expensive cookie. I have no idea. It was so good that I'm like, man, whatever. But it's also, you're not spending like, you're buying a loaf of bread or I'm buying a couple of cookies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to notice a difference. Now, granted, I probably would buy 2 cookies and spend the same as like at the grocery store an entire bag of crappy cookies. But that's fine.
You know what's funny is you don't see lines around the block very often, right? So there's obviously something good there.
I shouldn't say around the block, but it's out the door and down like 10, 15 people. But it's so small, they can only hold 10 people to start with, right?
Last Saturday, I saw a picture of Ohio State University. It's kind of hyper local because you got to kind of be there, but it's still Ohio State University.
Yeah.
They launched a proprietary collaboration with Lululemon, which means you could get Lululemon, which everybody loves, with Ohio State emblems on it. And the only place to get it was not online. You could only get it in the store. Right? People lined up around the building.
Yeah.
Right? They did I think I heard or read like $500,000 in that store in one day. It wasn't all Lululemon, don't get me wrong.
Crazy, yeah.
But it brought everybody into the store and they sold out of Lululemon and got to ship more to it.
Jeez. Okay, I got to tell you a little story because I kind of found it kind of funny at the time. Lululemon's a Canadian company, and so
Oh, wait a second. Then should I say it's Lululemon?
okay. You kind of killed my joke, to be
Oh,
honest.
I didn't know you.
My story.
Oh man,
But
I
I'm
didn't
gonna
know that.
but I'm
like
gonna tell it anyway. Maybe it's an American thing. I don't know, but it literally is. It's a Canadian store. It got so much prominence in Canada. Everybody knew Lululemon. Everyone's wearing Lululemon. Then they started to expand into the States, and so my wife and I were walking. They opened up a Lululemon in Scottsdale Quarter in North Scottsdale, and we were just wandering down the sidewalk one day, and we were walking by this Lululemon, and this lady and her friend are walking by, and they're done up, all fancy and strutting along, and we overheard one say to the other, what how do you pronounce that? And that's exactly what she said. She goes, I'm not sure, but I like to call it Lululemon. And my wife and I stopped and looked like, what? We didn't say anything, but it was hilarious because we're like, Lululemon.
Yeah, come on. Well,
modifying it up, I guess.
Put the fancy French words on it. I'm not going.
But I don't know if they knew that it was from Canada. So you had a little priming there, maybe. But yeah,
you might have told me that story, and I probably killed it. I might have got that from you, my subconscious.
It could be, but anyway, it probably fell a little flat. But
I've got some Lululemon, and what I know is they don't like to make things for fat kids, right? For kids like me, I like it, but it's comfortable. I just don't look like that model, that mannequin.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the CEO got ousted for a comment he made a number of years ago. Yeah, so
I don't know what he said. But they're not trying to track me. I can tell you that.
I have had some of their stuff in the past, but I haven't had anything for probably 15 years. But I know they make good stuff. I don't know. It's probably not really for me, I guess.
So what do you think your best advice for a small business owner that knows he's only going to sell in town or part of town? What do you tell him?
Well, it's the same advice I give a lot of people outside of like straight inbound international sort of traffic stuff is business is built on relationships, and probably the more local you are, the more important. And I mentioned that at my creative agency, a lot of our business was local, like a big chunk of it, all built on relationships, all built on networking. That's how we did business. But like you said, it's no different. Someone comes into the bar, you want to welcome them. And I'll be honest, Canadian businesses, a lot of them aren't very good at that. They don't have the friendliness I see in the States. It takes a long time to build up sort of cred to where people seem to recognize you and treat you like a regular here compared to the US. And I think for a Canadian business, I think that'd actually be a real advantage, is to take advantage of that, welcome people, make it really welcoming, and make it based on relationships.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So I've had people come up. I teach a class now over at the university, right? So, and I was asked that question last night. Yeah, last night in class. I said, I put every idea to 4 questions first, right? Every idea that comes out. So if you're going to come to me and say, hey, you think my business will work here? First thing I'm going to ask myself before I ask you, or I'll ask you, is, hey, does it solve a problem? Is this really a problem that people have, right? Or things that people want? The second question I ask is, does what I have work? Does it solve that problem? The third one is, will somebody pay for it? Will somebody buy it? And then the fourth question is, will multiple people buy it? Just because, my grandma bought it doesn't mean everybody else is going to buy it, right? So those are the first 4 tests, I think, of an idea. If you come to me and say, I want to start something in San Antonio, those are the first 4 things I'm going to ask you. And then we can get deeper into how to do it. But if you can't answer those and be really confident in what you're saying, you probably don't have a business yet.
And those questions you can't gloss over. You have to have the very cold, hard truth. Look at it, because the entrepreneurs are naturally optimistic by nature, right? They're naturally so full of belief. That's where, when you mentioned a little bit about data, it's like, you ask yourself those 4 questions and then gather data before you spend a dime, and talk with potential customers. Talk with, I remember, and I've probably told the story before, but before I started Dry Run, I bought probably 40 cups of coffee and 40 beer and sat down with local business people and talked with them about the problem and tried to get a better understanding of it, and said, well, would this be useful? Would you like, and just tried to gather some feedback on that. I will do a bit of a word of caution. The one thing I didn't do is I didn't talk with a single finance pro. I didn't talk with an accountant. It was all businesses. Every single one was a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And so after we launched Dry Run and had accountants start coming and knocking on our door, I was a little shocked. I shouldn't have been shocked. I should have actually talked with a much wider range potential customers, and doing some testing rather than just kind of, I'd already decided, without realizing it, I already decided who that market was, and I didn't talk with anybody else.
Yeah, that's really. Hey, speaking of small businesses, we're not really hyper local, but we could use your support. Right? So if you want, and you feel the need to support this little local business called Mike and Blaine, our little podcast, you can go to mikeandblaine.com. You can, subscribe to our stuff, right? To our channels, our YouTubes, our Facebooks. You get cool little things through that. But buy our merch, right? Because we're just giving her over here. Oh, remember? I told you I was going to
just giving her.
Told you I was going to work that in. Or buy us a beer, right? Buy us a beer, $5. You can be the beer sponsor. We'll talk about you and your company. You tell us what you want us to say. We're going to say it, unless it's dumb.
Yeah.
We're not going to say dumb stuff, so don't do that.
We say plenty of dumb stuff, and I'm going to say, like again, Jonathan Engel, Engel Investments sponsored our beer. But the reason I want to say this is, like, if you sponsor a beer, you buy us a beer, I want to make it really clear. It's just flowing. The money is flowing through to a small business. So here today it was Snake Lake, but we are supporting a small business. So if you, it's like, buy us a beer, you send us some money over, you're just helping small business, because we are going to go and buy from a great little brewery, and we're going to support them. And that's something we're really passionate about, is helping these small businesses.
Hey, 106 is in the book. We talked all about what it's like to be a hyper local business. I'm Mike Blaine. That's Blaine Birch. And we'll see you next time.
Check out their website at mikeandblaine.com. Then subscribe to the podcast and buy these guys a beer.